forced vaccination violates the doctrine of bodily autonomy. In this case, it appears to be compelled vaccination, given the scenario. Here's the situation we're at. I'm going to go over some articles. I'm going to give my opinion. I don't hate President Biden. I think he's doing what he believes is right. I disagree with the man. I understand that. I'll actually be straight up. Go back a number of years, 2016 election, I probably could have voted for President Biden or Vice President Biden. Actually, now that I think I probably really would have voted for him. Instead, voted for candidate Trump. Why? It's a two-fingered salute to the establishment. Should try to be consistent here. It was also in a very blue state as well that was totally going Democrat. Now, I had the privilege of having that, but I understand. Vice President Biden, he met with tragedy. He lost his son. He was grieving. He was mourning. And it got to the point where he even said, world leaders were calling me, Joe, we need you. Is that foreign collusion? These are other questions. Questions can be dangerous. I think the man's doing what he thinks is right, that he believes, at least probably according to some folks that he talked to, you can do this. Now, folks are saying all different things, and I actually had a picture in my head. It's a little bit different. Now, what is this? All right. So we'll bring it up right here. Sweeping new vaccine mandates for 100 million Americans. This is brought to us by the AP News. This was yesterday. His most forceful pandemic actions. The words President Joe Biden on Thursday ordered, sweeping new federal vaccine requirements for as many as 100 million Americans, private sector employees, as well as healthcare workers and federal contractors in an all-out effort to curb the surging COVID-19 Delta variant. Now, again, I'm not a doctor or an attorney, but I know a few. None of this is legal or medical advice. It should be clear. We learned that from President Obama. What do I see happening? Okay, he's issuing an executive order. What does the president have the control of? The federal workforce. He is the president. He's the presiding officer of these United States. You could set policy that dictates, all right, to be based upon your employment, you must comply with X. And now it appears he's extending it to contractors, private sector employees that may work with the federal government. What happens if they don't want to? Does that mean they lose their job? Doesn't that seem like somebody might be making a decision under duress? Oh, no. You can have a test and everything. We all know, everybody enjoys those things. And at some point, people might just be, I need to keep doing this, or I'll just do this. Is that duress? Is that compulsion? I'm not an attorney. All I know is compelling somebody to do something with their body that they do not consent to is wrong. Or to pressure somebody into that. I thought that was a very liberal principle. Your body, your choice. Now you can come up with the argument, and again, I'm not a virologist, doctor, or attorney. You can come up with the argument, well, you could harm other people. Okay. That is an argument. Again, I think much of this would have been solved if maybe we directed that initial $6.2 trillion towards getting workers who may feel sick, especially that are essential workers, paid time off. Because coincidentally, in many states, even a progressive state like Massachusetts, that's actually a commonwealth, okay, you get a test. You test you got to isolate for 2 weeks. Okay. What happens during that 2 weeks? If you're working for a Fortune 100 company, like I used to at one point, I probably would have got paid to sit on my butt for basically a year because I did door-to-door sales. More recently, you test positive, you don't get to work for 2 weeks, and you probably technically should be ordering delivery, which is more expensive as well. Oh yeah, and disability doesn't kick in until week 3. Now you could apply for these different things, but I don't know. Some folks kind of base their life on some level of normalization. Not everyone has the luxury of being able to, well, I can just stop working for a while. Now, I'm privileged as heck. I kind of had the ability to do that for a while, and I made a lot of poor choices. These things happen. I see you all there. Welcome for joining. I really want to put this out here, just because this is serious business. We'll go back to the article here, because we got a little bit to go through. Speaking of the White House, Biden sharply criticized the tens of millions of Americans who are not yet vaccinated despite months of availability and incentives. Hi. We even had a lottery here in Massachusetts. You could vax millions. Why do you... It's not like President Biden has a different take on it than candidate Biden. It is and was the Trump vaccine, Operation Warp Speed. I'm just saying. We've been patient, but our patience is wearing thin, and your refusal has cost us all, he said, in all but biting off his words. The unvaccinated minority can cause a lot of damage, and they are. A minority, you say? A minority that the President of the United States' words seem almost cutting towards. I haven't listened to it. This is from the Associated Press. I'm going to put a little bit of faith in them here. Your body, your choice. Okay. Now I hear some folks say again, you need to protect people. All right. Now, as long as these aren't the same folks that are completely outraged at the new Texas abortion law or anything, I think it's one of the heartbeat bills or something, which 6 weeks. Some folks may not necessarily know, but your body, your choice. Well, that's a fetus. Okay. One question. When does life begin? Never codified into law. Something I learned from MC. When does life begin? You can answer that, and it's codified. This issue goes away. Spend some time exploring that issue. And I say this as somebody who's utilized post-coital contraception. It takes 2 to tango. We should take responsibility for our actions. Now, I ain't no better than anybody. It's a hell of a... I actually am probably a much more terrible person than many people. I've lived a life of sin. It's good to know who you are. We'll pop back over here, and we'll go over here. Here's the executive order requiring coronavirus disease 2019 vaccination for federal employees. September 9th, 2021. Presidential actions. By the authority vested in me as president by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, including sections 3301, 3302, and 7301 of Title V United States Code, is hereby ordered as follows. Does anyone else always love it when they're listing all these different things? It's like, how are we even supposed to know this before the internet? Well, you didn't have access to a law library to get on their computer to look it up. That's only what I basically kind of learned from the Patreon kind of complaint that never came to fruition. But we started an investigation for M for other reasons. Section 1, policy. It is the policy of my administration to halt the spread of coronavirus disease 2019, COVID-19, including the B.1.617.2 Delta variant, by relying on the best available data and science-based public health measures. The Delta variant currently predominant variants is... Oh, okay. It goes on for a little while. The links are all in the doobly-doo. Okay. Where was it? Rigorous standards for safety, blah, blah, blah. There was a part here because essentially at the end they give... Where is it? Right here. Okay, here we go. Accordingly, building on these actions and in light of the public health guidance regarding the most effective and necessary defenses against COVID-19, I have determined that to promote the health and safety of the federal workforce and the efficiency of the civil service, it is necessary to require COVID-19 vaccination for all federal employees, subject to such exceptions as required by law. As required by law. I don't know. All I know is I happen to live in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We always had seatbelt laws. Apparently, if you're over 18, if you are an adult in the Commonwealth, you don't got to wear a seatbelt anymore. I'm like, really? How the heck did that happen? Apparently, somebody went to court and pleaded under the doctrine of bodily autonomy. Your body, your choice. You're an adult. You get to make those decisions. That boggled my mind. Is that his out? Because apparently you got a bunch of Republicans and everything running to the courts and everything. And hey, this is the process. The other thing, too, is... Section 3, definitions. For the purpose of this order, the term agency means an executive agency is defined in 5 U.S.C. 105, excluding the Government Accountability Office. Is the Government Accountability Office not under this? I have no idea. Why did the CDC change its definition for vaccine? Agency explains move as skeptics lurk. Yeah. Social media is calling bluff on the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention for modifying its definition of the word vaccine and vaccination on its website. Before the change, the definition for vaccination read, the act of introducing a vaccine into the body to produce immunity to a specific disease. Now the word immunity has been switched to protection. The term vaccine also got a makeover. The CDC's definition changed from a product that stimulates a person's immune system to produce immunity to a specific disease to current, a preparation that is used to stimulate the body's immune system's response against diseases. Immunity to protection. Now, again, I'm not an attorney. I'm not a doctor. I'm just looking at this. I'm like, you're changing the words. Because all I remember is apparently, and again, I have no evidence. I've just been told this, depending on what you get, if it's one of those things that's supposed to modify or it's an MMRA-based thing, it allegedly doesn't say it anywhere on the actual paperwork. It might say it outside. It's like, yeah, you might have vaccines available, but on the paperwork, allegedly from my memory, it says gene therapy. I'm just saying, again, maybe they actually want it to fit. I'm just saying, why do you have to do it post hoc now? Now, to be fair, we have to continue onward. Yes, as we can see here, because this is also important, CDC study finds more COVID patients report having long-term symptoms. Now, my mom did actually have something like this. It persisted for about a month or so, where basically she said she had kind of lost the sense of taste for a while. So it's like these things do happen. A Center for Disease Control and Prevention CDC study found that people who test positive for COVID-19 report having long-term symptoms 1.5 times more frequently than those who tested negative. Nearly 66% of people who tested positive for the virus reported at least one of their COVID-19 related symptoms lasted for longer than 4 weeks. Okay, yeah, no, my mom, and apparently she eventually recovered from that as well, compared to 42.9% of those who always tested negative. So does that mean like some of the people that tested negative also had long-term effects? I don't know. Again, you're putting a toll on your body. You're utilizing energy. I mean, when I suspect I had it last year, it's like, I didn't feel good. Decently healthy 36-year-old dude. I considered going to the hospital, and then I started to feel better. My body fought it off. This was also interesting. When was the first U.S. COVID death? CDC investigates 4 early cases. The deaths spread out across 4 states in January 2020 have become part of a scattershot collection of clues about the virus's early spread. Imagine my shock. Late last year, the federal government's chief statistician on death. Oh, that's terrible. I feel so sorry for this person. Late last year, the federal government's chief statistician on death received word about a tantalizing discovery. Oh, why'd you have to say tantalizing? Someone had died from COVID-19 in January 2020. The death certificate said a revelation that would have sped up the timeline of the virus's spread in the United States by several weeks. Now, again, this was actually misreported. They had meant June 2020. However, now at least 4 possible COVID-19 deaths from January 2020 have survived. Dr. Anderson's vetting spread out across 4 states. They had become part of a scattershot collection of clues about the virus's early spread beyond China. Some of them trustworthy, others less so. That have begun drawing more attention as scientists and intelligence officials try to unravel how the pandemic began. Odds are all 4 of the CDC's new death cases from Kansas, California, Alabama, and Wisconsin really did result from COVID-19 are slim, some scientists said. It's good to know. This year, a doctor or other officials certified or reclassified them as being COVID-19 related, but whether they did so solely on the basis of the person's symptoms with the help of more useful blood or sample tissues is not clear. Now, I'm not a doctor, I'm not an attorney, I'm not even a historian. I'm some dude on the internet, but I don't know about you all, but if this did start at one point, we kind of have the ability to get all across the world very quickly. Now, a lot of folks travel for the new year, whether it happens to be here, whether it happens to be in Europe. A lot of folks in China like traveling all around the world, and especially if something did happen, wherever the virus did originate from, wherever it happened to come from, because apparently, at least the lab that some folks are talking about was set up in like 2014 via a lot of money of international funds, including the United States of America, to study back coronaviruses. Okay, that's their job. And allegedly, I believe it was Yuri Dagan who had gone on with Professor Brett Weinstein at one point and had mentioned something about a minor outbreak among some miners back in 2015, around there, somewhere in China. Now, I'm just saying, if that lab happened to be doing its job, perhaps they happened to get some samples of it, because towards the end of the year or so, and even citing Professor Wolfram, some records kind of seem to be deleted. Now, again, people, oh my God. Now, again, if you're under investigation, you don't necessarily want to cause a panic. So it's like, all right, well, maybe that's something that a government would do. Maybe that's something some people would do. Maybe some folks were like, oh, this might be us. Naughty. Let's delete. I'm just saying, regardless of whatever happened, if there happened to be a sample, and apparently there was a gentleman that happened to be working there that was talking about how you can manipulate different things. Again, I'm not saying this happened. This is what some people have said. Kind of like that article where it's some scientists said things. Again, wherever it came from, if it happens to be very contagious, maybe not quite as contagious as measles, but very contagious, if it's a novel virus that nobody has any immunity to, because, I mean, it wasn't this, like, similar with, like, the Hong Kong flu and, I don't know, like, the Spanish flu and maybe, like, the Black Death. It's no immunity among humanity. What's that changed since then? We got the ability to travel very quickly all across the planet, and it happens more frequently, and this happened around the holiday season. Is it not plausible that maybe some folks are traveling around and maybe they happen to be kind of sick, and maybe some more folks happen to be kind of sick? Because if this is one of those things, depending on when it may have started, nobody reported it for a month or two, you got an R factor of like 2.4, and especially if you're not looking for it, it could be even worse. Might that explain, I don't know, the exponentiality of what we saw back in January? I mean, I remember when this started happening. I think I did a few videos on it. I interviewed Ludum the Sexy back. She lives in Hong Kong back in like February 16th or something like that of 2020. Just talking about the precautions they did, and she was insinuating that, or at least from the data, like, kind of sounds like it might be airborne based upon their contact tracing and stuff. And then the CDC, for some reason, told us with this new novel respiratory illness, don't wear a mask at one point. And I'm like, that seems very odd. It's not like there were a bunch of folks that were like, oh, this is actually an issue now. Maybe we should have ramped up production because a lot of our current stock, a lot of folks bought it and sent it back home to China. How dare they engage in capitalism? Go back to this article here. Now, again, I'm actually going to go to the next article because this is still a thing. Tomorrow, it's been 20 years since 9/11 happened. Cancer cases, medical complications, surge for 9/11 survivors, CDC report says. We're not going to touch upon this. Does this surprise anybody? And we also got to acknowledge there are a lot of folks that they weren't even alive that are on this internet right now that may actually be watching right now when that happened. And we're going to do something on that tomorrow. Have at it. Joe Biden dares vaccine mandate opponents to take him on. Don't think that's a good move, Mr. President. Partisan pushback comes as CDC released a study finding those who were not fully vaccinated recently were 11 times more likely to die of COVID. Okay. Again, I'm not a doctor, but doesn't have to do with, I don't know, maybe folks that didn't have it. Nobody's saying that it doesn't help. Probably also doesn't help the folks that are saying doing this when certain folks, I don't know, classified somebody that died in a motorcycle accident as a COVID. Oh, they tested positive. There's a difference between tested positive and infection. Apparently, almost nobody in the UK has been listed as infected because that requires other things that you need to do rather than a test that, at least I heard a couple months ago, the FDA is not renewing at the end of this year. They want to use other things, which, again, if you were talking, and this is the thing that actually kind of got me, I'm just like, at the start of all this, I'm like, well, there's a disease, and you can test and be like, you had it, you recovered for it, because the CNN's death counter listed like recovered. If you're recovered, doesn't that just mean you have some immunity to at least whatever form is currently around? Why the heck didn't we just send these people back to work? It's like, you're clear. We want to minimize the vector of transmission. All right, you at least have immunity for a certain period of time. All I know is February, got very sick, considered going to the hospital, started to feel better. Then for the next 14 to 16 months, in a highly rotating workforce as an essential service person, making sure that people get food so they can eat, I didn't get sick for like another year and a half. And I kind of got sick again, and I'm like, I'm just really going to work and everything. I got it from work there. I'm like, all right, that makes sense. I'm just like, all right, well, I didn't feel anywhere near as bad. And then a couple of weeks later, I'm like, I kind of got something and it wasn't as bad again, but it kind of lingered, was a little different. I'm like, all right, I'm not going to go visit my old man. He's in his 80s. I'm like, no, use discretion. I'm not going to go get in another vehicle and stuff. It's like, I don't know. Just do your minimal thing. I don't know. Did I get COVID again and the Delta variant? I don't know. Again, what's the incentive? Oh, yeah, you're not going to get paid for 2 weeks. Have fun. I think we need to be realistic here. Oh, what's this? All right. I went back into the past to look at other situations. Can you get a flu shot and still get the flu? This is back from 2013. This year's flu season started about a month early, prompting federal officials to warn it could be one of the worst in years. They're urging everyone to get their flu shots. But like every flu season, there are a lot of reports of people complaining they got their flu shot but still got the flu. What's up with that? Well, as Michael Jung from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention explains, there are a lot of possible reasons. The first is, well, the flu vaccine is the best way. See, they use the term vaccine here. And we can, if you actually go to Wikipedia, they actually have a thing where it's like you can use it, and then there are some that have basically like full neutralizing immunity. And I think that's what the CDC's definition was. So they might not necessarily be wrong, but the sheer fact you're changing it just so you could classify these as vaccines, I don't know. Why don't you just use a larger category? It's an inoculation. People know you got the flu shot, and the flu shot doesn't really scare as many people. Why? Well, you get like an old dead, whatever the close it was things. You synthesize it. Okay, you get it. Why? All right. Well, who gets it? I don't know. Usually older folks and folks that are immunocompromised. I know. What a novel idea. Maybe we should help protect the most vulnerable. Now, the vaccine, for example, tends to work less. Hold on. The first is, well, the flu vaccine is the best way to protect against the flu. It's far from perfect. In fact, the vaccine is only about 60% effective. So some people get the flu even though they were vaccinated because the shot just didn't work for them. The vaccine, for example, tends to work less well in the elderly. That's a big problem, since the elderly are among those the greatest risk for serious complications from the flu. Another reason that it takes about 2 weeks for the vaccine's protection to kick in. If someone gets exposed to the flu in the time before that, when he gets the vaccine or when his immune system has responded suspiciously, he could still get sick. It's also always possible that somebody could get exposed to a strain of the flu virus that's not covered by the vaccine. This year's vaccine, though, it looks like it should work pretty well. Flu virus strains appear to be a very good match, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so different strains, because they're always evolving. I don't know, if you're creating millions and millions of different copies of yourself, it's going to be some genetic variation. Again, I'm not a doctor or virologist. U.S. study finds 36% flu vaccine protection against slash 25% against H3N2. This was from 2018. An eagerly awaited estimate today of flu vaccine effectiveness in the United States so far this season confirmed that protection against H3N2 strain is low and not much different than a similar report from Canada earlier this month. The latest findings flesh out a vaccine protection gap that's part of what's fueling a record high flu season in the United States, and bolsters the case that researchers and public health experts are making for the development of much improved flu vaccines. With H3N2 as the dominant strain again this season, scientists have grappled with complex challenges regarding declining vaccine protection, believed to be related to problems with egg-based production and wide genetic diversity in circulating H3N2 strains. Okay, now we have this. This was some 2009. Swine flu vaccine shortage. Why? Millions of Americans have already been infected with swine flu. 46 states have widespread flu, and the president has declared a national emergency. This was in 2009. I'm pretty sure that means President Obama declared a national emergency. But only recently have U.S. health officials discovered why manufacturers can't deliver as much swine flu vaccine as expected. Officials at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention say for months the companies didn't realize how far short their vaccine yields were falling. Because they didn't have the chemicals called reagents. I remember that at one of President Trump's news conferences, that they didn't necessarily have the reagents. It sounds like a decade later, we're still running into a lot of the same problems. Things that make you go, I would have told them how much active ingredients they had in their vaccine production vats. You didn't know how much of each chemical was in there? Now, again, this was a decade ago. I'm sure technology has improved greatly. To really understand how much product you have, you need to do potency tests. You weren't? Good thing we have the FDA. Says Dr. Ann Shoutout, chief of the CDC's National Center for Immunization and Respiratory Diseases. She says reliable tests used to measure potency were delayed. When they were run, the manufacturers basically found that the products they had were actually less than they thought they had, Shoutout said in an interview with NPR. That was something we knew a long time ago that wasn't something we knew a long time ago that's relatively recent. Okay, that's good. All right. On top of that, there were glitches in the new machines manufacturers installed to put vaccine in vials and package the vials. So there was an unexpected bottleneck in the so-called fill and finish part of getting the vaccine out the door. The CDC didn't realize the combined effect of these problems until mid-October. That's when it revised its projections of swine flu vaccine delivery dates downward. The problems have left local public health officials frustrated and bewildered. The vaccine situation is quite frustrating, says Dr. Jonathan Fielding, the health commissioner for Los Angeles County. The numbers, when we were asked to anticipate and plan for, have turned out to be gross overestimates of what has been supplied to us. We're overpromised and underdelivered. Yes, that never happens. Fielding said, I don't understand what the issues are with the manufacturers. And from one week to the next, they can't give us more accurate estimates. You go to this article. Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine has full FDA approval. That's amazing. The Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine received full FDA approval on August 23rd, 2021. Oh, click this link. Comirnaty and Pfizer BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine. Like it's 23rd, 2021. FDA approves Comirnaty COVID-19 vaccine, mRNA, which was previously known as Pfizer BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine for the protection of COVID-19 disease in individuals 16 years of older. View commentary information. All right. On August 23rd, 2021, the FDA approved the first COVID-19 vaccine. This vaccine has been known as Pfizer BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine. Will now be marketed as Comirnaty for the prevention of COVID-19 disease in individuals 16 years of age and older. The vaccine also continues to be available under emergency use authorization, including individuals 12 through 50 years of age, and for the administration of a third dose in certain immunocompromised individuals. This was, again, was something that MC brought up. Seems like the Pfizer vaccine, it got there. Now, obviously, this is completely due to all the data and everything that's going on, because we're going to follow the science. Oh, Scott Gottlieb, MD, age 49. Special partner, New Enterprise Association, Inc.'s Healthcare's investment team and resident fellow of the American Enterprise Institute. Gottlieb served as the 23rd commissioner for the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, FDA, from 2017 to 2019. Now, again, he just happens to be the former boss of many of these people. He has to be in the private sector right now, because he's engaging in capitalism. What's this? Oh, restricted knowledge. I've exceeded my titles. I apologize, New York Times. Now, the only issue you run into with gated information is you have an incomplete picture. That's why we have archive.is. Elizabeth Warren calls on former FDA chief to quit Pfizer board. It's from 2019. July 2nd, 2019. Senator Elizabeth Warren on Tuesday called on Dr. Scott Gottlieb, the former commissioner of the Food and Drug Administration, to resign from the board of Pfizer, saying his decision to join one of the country's leading pharmaceutical companies smacks of corruption. Ms. Warren, who is seeking the Democratic presidential nomination, said in a public letter to Dr. Gottlieb that the revolving door between government and the industry makes the American people rightly cynical and distrustful about whether high-level Trump administration officials are working for them or for their future corporate employers. Questions can be dangerous, especially when asked by senators. I'm just saying, hey, thank you all for joining. I see you there, everybody, from Barrett Head to Lewis, the Bandit, the LDG, the Joe. Shout out to my patrons, Joe, Franco, and Dave M. This broadcast are helped made possible by viewers like you. Yes, Loafer. It's people have questions. It's okay to be skeptical. Why? Because we're human. And it's okay to be human. At least that's what I believe. Now, thank you all for watching. Be said, everybody. Be safe. And remember, don't violate the doctrine of bodily autonomy. Do unto others as you would have done unto you. I see a shade. Peace, everybody.